All right, now I'm going to attempt to talk about passwords and how they work. Okay, so I've somewhat secured this page. Okay, notice that I'm on my site, Project 1, and I'm on the index page. Okay, and if I type in a password, a username, and a password, it takes me to my site. Inside my site, notice that the first page is the home page or a welcome page. Okay, notice that home is red. Now if I go to each of the other pages, notice that the folder structure says user and then index, blog index, contract index, and then I have this logout page. Okay, and on the logout page, if I hit the back arrow, it no longer goes back to any of the other pages. Now if I go to user, just like I did, it just redirects me back here. So let's talk about the code on how that works. The first thing we want to do is create a new class, and it's going to be a session class. Okay, so we have the session class here. I'm going to leave it here for a second, and you can pause the video, and I would just copy this exactly how it is. Okay, notice under the public function for login, it uses the user ID, not ID. Okay, because that's what we called it. It was user ID. Username is how you called your username. And let's just scroll down. Okay, and it's really not that long. Make sure you get all your brackets correct. Okay, it essentially has the construct function, has a login function. It checks that you are logged in. Has a logout function which unsets the session, and then it has a check for the stored login. Okay, so that's the first thing. Create this session class. Obviously, when you create the session class, you want to go into initialize and add the session class under the initialize. Also, we're going to be using at the very bottom, we want to create a new object called session off that session class. So session equals new session. And we're calling that as a capital S because it is a capital S here. Okay. We also want to add a function. Okay. This is the require login function. Okay. All our other functions should be there just fine, but this is the require login function. This function is what you're going to use at the top of every page to check that it's logged in. If not, it's going to redirect back to the index page. Okay. So function require login. All right. At that point, you pretty much have the whole framework set up. Now what we'll want to do is set up our home, index, and logout page. So the logout page is the easiest. Okay, essentially it just calls that logout function, session logout, and it kills the session and redirects back to the index page. Pretty easy. Notice it's just .private initialize because it's actually sitting right here in the public folder. It just goes up one into private, and then it goes into initialize to grab all the stuff it needs. Okay, so that's the easy one. The index file is a little bit easy also. It's going to require, so we can have the session, it'll require once the initialize, so we can have the session variables. And the post, if we post, and what's the post? It's very easy. I'm going to scroll down. Notice that on this page, I'm actually not calling the header. Okay, I'm actually just starting with HTML. I'm doing all of this code on my own, and I want you guys to do this too. Make sure it says login page, blog manager, and then come all the way down and just do all this code yourself. Okay, because you don't want to give access to that header information. Okay, the shared header. So all the stuff that's inside that shared header, you don't want this showing up on every single page. On your home page, on your login page, you don't want it. So you can essentially just copy this first part, put it in there, and actually probably copy all the way down here and just get rid of this navigation part, and then there won't be any navigation. While we're on the header, let's take a look at this. I changed to home, user, blog, contract, and logout for the, this is what sets the current class. Okay. And if you scroll over now that my site is getting somewhat working, I changed my navigation. So instead of going to the index page, I actually go to the home page. So here it says home now, and it's going to this home page here. Okay, so index is where I log in. If it's logged in, home becomes the new home page. Okay? And logout, which is here, is this logout here. And if I click this logout, it kills the whole session and sends me back to the index page. Okay? And then notice I just have user goes to index, blog goes to index, contract goes to index. And you'll notice I have my folder, and folder here calling those index pages. Very simple. Okay? Very, very simple. All right. Now, let's look at our final page. Well, let's look at our home page. On our home page, very easy home page. Not a whole lot there. Hey, welcome. Okay. However, we do add a line here, and we call that function called require login. So it's saying, hey, require login, and that just checks if the session variable is set. If it is, keep it here. Otherwise, send it back to the index page to let them log in. So let's go back to our index page and look at this. At the bottom of our index page, starting with the HTML, let's see if we can close up some of these that we don't need. Here's our navigation, no navigation, right? And get rid of the whole header. I'm going to move the header over. Okay. So here's our form. Okay. On the form, username and password. And that's what's going to be sent up here, username and password, if it's post. Okay. And then we're going to say, hey, check our user. Okay. Find by username. So there's another thing that we need to do. User find by username. If we go back to our user class, and we're passing in two variables, the username and the password, and we're setting it equal to this admin. And if the admin is true, meaning it came back true, okay, then log them in. Sorry, if the admin is not false, so it means if it's true, log them in. Okay, otherwise tell them, hey, your passwords don't match. Okay, and let's see if that works. So if I type in, I think it's test and something random, it's going to come back and say, hey, your passwords don't match. Not super great. It should pass it out here, but that I don't care. Okay, it's working. So let's look at this function. Okay, so and remember, it's going to be in the user class. So we click on user class. And here's our user class we set up last time. And down here in the function area, we just need to add this one function. Okay. Again, you can pause the video and look at it. Essentially static public function name, and it's passing the two variables. And I'm going to scroll over a little bit so you can pause it. Over here, it's escaping the password. This right here is very important. Make sure you get it in right. This means that if you have anything like a // a // anything that's going to screw up the SQL statement itself, it will escape that out. Okay. And it does it automatically. And it does the same thing for the username. In case a user puts in tries to do PHP code in there, or an SQL injection attack, it'll escape that out so that it protects your thing. So anyway, it returns false. If it doesn't work, it returns false. If it's an empty array, meaning if this query doesn't return anything, it's an empty array, it says, hey, shoot it back false. Otherwise, we're good to go. Okay? All right, so we have our user class, we have our session class, we have our initialize, and we added our function. Okay? We have our logout page, we have our home page, and on our home page, we required the require login. Okay, and we want to do that on every one of our other pages. So on our index page for user, require login. And we'll want to do that for all of our other pages and push it out. So that way, if they're on any page, it will log it out. Essentially, that is how we lock down our site username and password. Now, there's other methods of doing it. Obviously, this is just one of the most simplistic ways of doing it that is somewhat secure. So there you go. Passwords, username, passwords in less than 10 minutes.